A1, B2, C2. What does that even mean? Trying to define language learning proficiency and also categorizing language learners based off what level they're at is very complex. Bienvenidos nuevamente a todos a mi canal Spanish Blueprints. My name is Joshua and this channel is dedicated to guiding you during your Spanish learning journey. And along this journey, you might want to know what level that you're at. That's why in this video, I want to make it clear for you what exactly is language learning proficiency and is it important? So first, let's start with the definition of proficiency. One that I found online was proficiency is the ability to use language in real world situations in a spontaneous interaction in non-rehearsed context in a manner acceptable and appropriate to native speakers of the language. So that does sound fairly simple, but in the language learning world, it gets a lot more complex and more detailed. For example, according to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, CEFR, they have language levels broken out into 3 different categories. We have A1 to A2, and that is a basic user. There's B1 to B2, and that is an independent user. And then C1 to C2, that is a proficient user of the language. One example for what exactly does that mean to have A1 to A2 proficiency level, I have can understand and use familiar everyday expressions and very basic phrases aimed at the satisfaction of needs of a concrete type. Then for B1 to B2, I have can produce simple connected text on topics which are familiar or of personal interest, can describe experiences and events, dreams, hopes, and ambitions, give reasons and explanations for opinions and plans. Then the C1 to C2 proficiency level, I have can understand a wide range of demanding, longer texts and recognize implicit meaning, can express him or herself fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions. And I have a link to the article that has these proficiency levels so you can look at them more in depth. And you can find the link to this article in the description box below. So this is a very popular and used proficiency scale. But as I was saying, as far as the complexity of this topic, there are other ones as well that other people and other organizations have created. So one big reason why this can be very important to categorize different language learners based off their proficiency level is for the job market. So different companies or different organizations can be able to determine what level that you're at. How exactly can you determine what proficiency level that you're at? One example is by taking examinations, and one is called the TOEFL, and that stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. So this tests your reading, listening, speaking, and writing skills in 4 separate sections, and it is set to find out if you're ready for the rigors of academic training in an English-speaking institution. There's also one for Spanish, which is called Diplomas de Español como Lengua Extranjera, or Diplomas in Spanish as a Foreign Language in English. These types of certifications are definitely used to build your resume. I'm not 100% sure if you would need these types of certifications just so you can work at the university level, or if you would need them at the high school level or other educational jobs as well. But I would definitely advise you to look those up just so you can see what is available to you once you have those types of certifications. So that's more at the professional level. Now let's talk about an exam that I have taken that I needed at the university level. When I was in college, I had to take the LPE exam, and that stands for Language Proficiency Exam. And I had to take this exam basically so I could graduate because the college that I was in required a second language that you had to study. So I chose Spanish, so I had to take the LPE exam for Spanish. All right, I had to move a little bit because the sun is getting my eye. The LPE exam is a proficiency test which evaluates the student's ability to read and listen at the intermediate high level and the intermediate mid-level as defined by ACCELERATOR for most languages. And the acronym stands for American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. They have their own proficiency scale, which is a little bit different from the CEFR one. When I took this exam, even right now, it has 4 different parts for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And most students at this college would have to take this LP exam after 2 years of taking language classes. Now that you have some details on the breakdown of language learning proficiencies and some different language learning exams, let's talk about the benefits of language learning proficiency. So there's one polyglot that I really enjoy listening to, watching his content and reading his articles. And his name is Luca excuse me, Lampadiello. Okay, he's Italian and I don't speak Italian. I speak a little bit of French and Spanish. So right now I'm kind of mixing those two languages together to pronounce his last name. So excuse me, Luca. So one comment that he had in a video I just recently watched about language learning proficiencies and language learning proficiency exams is that it gives you structure and makes you do things that you would not normally do. For example, once you start reading into those different levels of proficiencies for languages, then you start to figure out like, oh, I have not done this before, or I could work on this aspect of the language because of how detailed that it is. And I definitely agree with this because it just really exposes you to the diversity and the complexity of language learning overall and the many different ways that you can improve in it. Because I definitely could not have thought of all the different details that are within these different language proficiency scales and tests at all. And another benefit of having language learning proficiency levels and examinations is so that you know what your value is within the job market, as we were just talking about beforehand. Now let's talk about the downsides of language learning proficiency. One big thing for me is that language learning is extremely diverse, whether it's within just one language or across all languages. So trying to have one box of proficiency for all different languages, I think is something that's very complicated to do. In addition, proficiency for different industries is going to vary heavily, and especially depending on what specific job that you would be searching for, if that is one reason why you would want to take an exam. For a hypothetical example, let's say that you're working as a sales associate and you have a bilingual position at Macy's or something like that. And your proficiency level wouldn't need to be very high. Let's say they don't even have like a formal test or anything like that. Comparing that to the interpreting industry and you're a legal or medical interpreter, so you would need certifications to be an interpreter in that industry, and then also just a higher level of, let's say, Spanish speaking skills and knowledge of the Spanish language overall to secure that position. Now you can do your own comparison as well if you know someone who is in a bilingual position or if you have been one in yourself and you know the difference between what level you would need for your position in comparison to an industry that is more regulated. Another downside for me, and the reason why I never really like to strive for them, is just because they haven't really seemed to be a really good measure of my proficiency level. For example, when I took the LP exam, I read all the details of what I should be able to do. Then right after I passed the LP exam, then I went to Mexico so I could actually test my skills. Then I realized how much of the Spanish language that I really did not comprehend at the time. And I definitely did not have the communication skills as I thought I would have. And because I had passed the exam, I thought I was going to be super fluent and I wasn't going to have any mistakes and I was going to be able to have conversations very fluidly about so many different topics, just filled with vocabulary. And that did not happen whatsoever. So you see the proficiency level, you see a proficiency level scale, and then you say to yourself, okay, I want to get to that C2 level, right? And then I feel this can really reduce the amount of opportunities that you have for creativity when it comes to your study sessions because of how rigid that path of going for C2 can be. I feel like it also just puts you in a box and it gives you a title that you can't really escape from. So the only thing that's on your mind is, okay, I'm A1, I'm B1 now, or I'm C1. That's me as a language learner. Oh, or I can't do B2 things, I can't do A1 things anymore because I'm at this proficiency level, and so on and so forth. So you get just so focused on trying to obtain and maintaining a title. It kind of opens up the door for you to get very frustrated a lot because you're not able to obtain or maintain a particular proficiency level. Especially if they're not tied to your language learning goals, I would not promote trying to reach a proficiency level if they're not a part of those, because you're gonna get very unmotivated really quick. So that can really just take away the joy of learning a language. But of course, if that is a goal of yours because you need it for a particular job or something like that, in this case, it's gonna be very beneficial for you as a language learner to obtain that level. If you like to learn how to set your language learning goals, I have created a video specifically for that, and you can find the link to this video in the description box of this video. Another downside for me when it comes to proficiency levels is the timing of it all, how long it takes for you to reach a particular proficiency level, because I think we can always get into that comparison phase, like where you're comparing yourself to another language learner or to a polyglot or something like that, like, oh, they're B2, they're C2, how come I'm not there yet? And that's something that's kind of happened to me when I was in high school. Because for whatever reason, there's many students in my class when I was a sophomore in high school that were able to understand the indirect objects and also the subjunctive mood in Spanish, and I had no idea how to do it. And for that reason, I ended up just not taking Spanish anymore, because I thought that I had to know the subjunctive mood to be able to be proficient in Spanish as a sophomore in high school. So when I didn't reach that level and I was struggling with it, I thought I wasn't prepared enough to go on to the next Spanish class. But this mentality is terrible, because I honestly did not understand what the subjunctive mood was, or even how to use it in conversation, or be able to even hear it and comprehend it from Spanish speakers until, I would say, 2020, 2021. It took me about 2 years of self-studying after college for me to actually comprehend what was the subjunctive mood. If I had the mentality that I could not learn Spanish, I could not continue with Spanish anymore because that I was not proficient with the subjunctive mood when I was a sophomore in high school, I would have never started up again. The language learning proficiencies can be a negative for a language learner when they're always trying to reach a particular proficiency level that it doesn't really match well with their life, and it doesn't match with their goals, and it doesn't match with their study style. So currently in my language learning journey, I am not really trying to reach a particular proficiency level or a scale, I would say, from a particular organization. I would say unless I were to get a job or I would be pursuing a job is when I would actually start to think more about those different levels, which kind of I am right now a little bit actually, because I've been thinking about becoming an interpreter, and that would require being at a particular proficiency level as well. The way that I measure my proficiency level really is through a lot of self-reflection and through my own personal goals with my interaction with Spanish speakers. So the way that I go about it is, if I could survive in a country in Latin America without having to use my native tongue, English. So that's something that I've been doing for the past year or so since I've been traveling to Latin America, then also having thoughts about living there. So that's kind of where my proficiency level, I would say, is set to. I do a lot of self-reflection based off of this goal. So just trying to be the most effective communicator that I can be with a Spanish speaker in many different settings, whether that's at a bank, whether that's at a store, at a market, or if I'm trying to get a cell phone or something like that. I'm not super hard on myself with trying to be very perfect when it comes to grammar or anything like that. For me, it's just trying to have that skill of comprehension between me and that Spanish speaker. And I'm pretty satisfied with that. So I really hope this video has made it a lot clearer what exactly language learning proficiencies are and if they are important or not. So for me, the answer to that second portion is it depends. It depends on what your language learning goals are, then also where do you see yourself in your language learning journey and where that language learning journey is going to take you as well. Because it could just take you to, let's say, some countries of Latin America for a vacation. You could just be doing this as a hobby. Or in the future, you could be looking for bilingual jobs, or you could be looking to become an interpreter, or trying to use your language in the job market. So I'm gonna leave that up to you to figure that out. But if you have any questions, please let me know. Muchas gracias por ver este video. Te veo en el próximo.